going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ryan. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button. But I've actually got Paul on his way over. He is the one that has helped me install the BC Racing coilovers on my Gen 4 Viper. And I think we need to do a little bit of adjustment before I get in alignment. So it saddens me to say this, but I think the front is just a little bit too low, like where we're tucking a little bit, and I would actually kind of almost rather have it like almost flush with the top of the tire. So, and then in the rear, we got just a little bit of a gap, but almost a little too much for me. So I think we're gonna start by adjusting the rear. I'm hoping maybe if that comes down a little bit, that'll kind of maybe pull the front up. Don't know how it's connected. It might not have any correlation whatsoever, but we're gonna find out. So Paul and I have never, this was the first set of coilovers either one of us have installed, so we've never adjusted them either. But the only thing you need is the spanner wrenches that come with the BC Racing coilover. So I'm gonna get him and his professional opinion, and we'll get to tackling this ride height. This is the way our rear is sitting currently, and I feel like there's just a little too much gap for my liking. So I'd almost rather that little gap be tucked up and the tire almost looks like it's touching the fender is kind of how I'm envisioning the way I want it. And then here's our ride height currently in the front, and you can't even stick a finger in there like without kind of wedging it up. So I feel like it just needs to be raised just a little bit. And like I said, I don't know if raising the rear will have any effect on the front whatsoever, but I'm kind of hoping if we squat the back, it'll lift the front just a touch. And I know one of the things that can affect your ride height is weight. So I've made sure we got a full tank of gas, and then I'm actually, once Paul gets here, I'm gonna have Slam and I are gonna go sit in the vehicle and to see if that makes any effect, like if it drops it to where it needs to be in the rear, because if so, I wouldn't want to drop it anymore because I don't want to rub, but I do want it to be looking nice and spicy. As promised, the GOAT's here, so we've recruited Paul. He's better at math than I am, so what we're actually gonna do, we'll raise the vehicle and then kind of go from there. So either one of us, this is the first time either one of us has messed with this, but I don't know, we've heard mixed things about like whether if you raise it an inch, Jesus, you don't need that much, but maybe about a quarter of an inch is probably what we're more aiming for on the back, is kind of going lower, about a quarter of an inch. But we've heard mixed things that if you potentially lower it a quarter of an inch, it might actually turn out to be a half inch. So I feel like we're gonna do a lot of guessing and testing, but we'll at least get the car up, see what we're working with, kind of do a little bit of measuring, put our math skills to the test, and go from there.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take the, what is it called, a spanner wrench?
Yep.
And we're gonna go ahead and loosen the bottom one, and this is in order to lower the whole thing here. And then we're gonna take the larger wrench, and we're gonna take up top, and kind of like we're tightening it, and that action should actually lower everything. And we're gonna take it, I guess, a little bit at a time, measure, and see what it kind of impact it has on the overall distance for the fender gap here.
So we'll measure, and I guess we're gonna kind of take, just for a reference point, I guess we'll kind of measure maybe from the top of this gold top collar to the bottom of the gold collar, just that way we can get a reference and then kind of adjust from there. But you said, basically loosen the bottom collar and then go from the top, and then we're turning it to as if you're tightening it to go low, go down.
So the bottom will unlock to where we can go ahead and turn everything, set it, and then the top is where we'll make our adjustment.
To go ahead and do our measurement, it's kind of a more confined space, so we have this handy dandy rope tape measure here, and we're going to go with the millimeter side just because it's more precise. We'll be able to see more specifically what kind of increments we're working with.
So Paul's got our measuring tape in there.
So we'll start from the bottom of the collar there, and then we want to do the start of the black collar.
Like that works. As long as we have a point of reference. So bottom of the gold collar to the very start of the black, or unless when we turn that, I guess it won't matter, right?
Right, so we're at 7.5 millimeters right now.
7.5.
Nope, that's centimeters. Yeah, 7.5 centimeters right now.
So we take our spanner, we're gonna put it on this bottom lock collar, and then we should, if I'm pushing So we're on the back passenger side corner, rear corner. So I should be able to push to unlock. Oh yeah, that
Loosens, that's positive.
positive, very positive. So I guess I can just go up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we're just basically trying to get it out of the way. And then with the top, the bigger spanner wrench, I'm going to plop it on here. And I need to
Pull it towards you.
pull towards me, so I need to kind of lock it in on the back side. Which of course I can't see, I have to do it by feel. But then we're just gonna turn. So with it turning, it's gonna turn the entire thing. That's the wonderfully fun part about this job, is I knew it was gonna be basically like, kind of like a guess and test, where you take the wheel off, turn the wrenches, put the wheel back on, check your fitment. If it doesn't work out, take the wheel back off, turn some wrenches, check your fitment. So it's all kind of boring stuff, but once we figured out at least which way to turn the wrench, those spanner wrenches, I think we're in better shape. But it's a trial and error kind of process.
One eternity later.
And we're back. We've got the Viper sitting right. And not that it was a hard task, but man, is it time consuming. So Paul and I worked on, we were able to knock out the rear, get that fitment perfect. And then he had to call it a day just because it took forever. So it's just one of those things where, again, you just take the wheels on and off and it's kind of a guess and test. You know, you lower it just a little bit. And that was one of the things, kind of one of the takeaways. The car isn't 100% level. So what I would recommend is maybe picking a number on each side. So if you start at 7, go to 6 on each side. And then you're gonna have to adjust a little bit from there. So get one side sitting right. And then you'll realize 6 on one side doesn't mean 6 on the other. So you might be sitting a little crooked just because I guess the car, the weight distribution on the car itself isn't exactly level. So you might have to have 6 on one side and then like 6 1/4 on the other just to actually balance it out. So that was kind of interesting. And then lower in the back did not raise the front at all. So there was 0 correlation, which I didn't know if there would be or not. It was more so just hoping so that way we wouldn't have to mess with the front. But yeah, I had to lower the rear and raise the front. And then also too, another takeaway is when you do this, so again, guess and test. Once you actually set the height, get in there, kind of, I would get in the car itself, bounce around a little bit, just kind of try to get that suspension to compress, because you would start with maybe a gap like this, and then once you got in there and kind of bounce the suspension around, like it would settle a little bit. So that's another kind of key point as well. So if you think it's sitting too high, rock the suspension, get in there, bounce it up and down, and then it'll settle a little bit. But we're looking good, so I'll show you kind of before and after, but I think we're money at this point. So I kind of went for like a 1-finger gap with a little bit of play all the way around. This is our front gap. And again, I brought it up just a little bit, but not too much. Like I said, you can still easily get 1 finger in here, 1 finger, and then just kind of rattle it around just a little bit. But 2 is kind of, you can't get 2 fingers in here, that doesn't work, but 1 and a little rattle. And like I said, you're gonna have to do each side independently, because by the time we got this one setting up right, the other side was a little higher or lower, vice versa. And then same for the rear, went for that 1-finger gap as well. So you can kind of get a finger in here, rattle around a little bit, but 2 fingers doesn't really quite work. But just like a 1-finger gap is what we aimed for. So I think we're low enough to still look good, but then hopefully just tall enough to where we won't be scraping on everything, and then if we hit any large bumps, hopefully won't drag or anything like that. So the biggest true test though is we're gonna hop in the car and give her a test ride and just kind of, I'm gonna pick some of the worst roads I can think of. And that, like I said, that'll be the true test. Do we actually touch any of the fender or anything like that? So let's go for a ride. First part of our test drive went well, so I've stopped off because the clouds are looking real crazy, so I figured it was a good time for a photo shoot. So I've stopped off here, gonna grab a few pictures, but then head back before it rains. But as far as rubbing, so far so good. We hit some fairly large bumps and it took it with ease. I mean, this is a stiff chassis, so it's not necessarily bone jarring, but it's not a Cadillac either. So, but as long as we're not rubbing the fenders off, that's okay in my book. We'll call that a success. So I think the ride height looks good, and then biggest part, it's actually functional. So there was one particular bump that I was a little worried about. I was looking for signs of like scraping, didn't see any. I kind of heard a little bit, but it's enough that I'm pleased with it. Couldn't be more happy with the way that she's sitting now. So the last piece of the puzzle, get alignment, and then she's ready for all kinds of activities. That's the biggest thing. I've been dying to like really drive this car, put some miles on it, actually get into the throttle a little bit and just see what all that V10 power feels like. So soon, so close. But I want to thank everybody for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps out. We're exclusively unexclusive, so we love it all around here. Motorcycles, domestics, imports, we got it all. But thanks again for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.